your ball back here again. Been a long time since I've been on again, but just wanted to chime in with some latest Steelers news and reactions to some of the news as we're preparing for the upcoming draft this Thursday. I'm recording this on a Monday, so only a couple of days left to find out exactly who the Steelers are going to pick and who they're going to take in the 2025 draft. There's been I don't like making videos every day talking about nothing or the same old thing, Aaron Rodgers, who the Steelers are going to pick, blah, blah, blah. But there's been some interesting things happening. So there's this debate about, Rodgers signing. He went on the Pat McAfee show, and I watched the interview. It was about 45 minutes. And to me, he said a whole lot without saying much at all. I could care less about what happened to the Jets, with the Jets. To me, that's none of my business. I could care less about what happened to the Jets. I don't care about his vaccination status or the fact that he lies. I have not met a person yet that has never lied, so I don't want to get into that. I also don't want to talk about how he treats people. We don't know these people. A lot of times people get real caught up in how Aaron Rodgers treats people, or is he arrogant? You don't know these people. So, you don't know what goes through their minds or what they've been through or their experiences or how people treat them. A lot of times you're not in the same income bracket as them, and people in different income brackets have different experiences with the way people treat them. They're often targets and things of that nature. So I just care about football. All I care about is football. I don't care about all these other things that's going on. So a lot of times we get caught up in that stuff. So a lot of that stuff was going on in the interview. Now, I can't sit there and decipher whether or not the man is telling the truth about his personal issues, or how that affects his personal issues, how his personal issues affect his decision-making, or whether or not he wants to play quarterback in the NFL next season. I also am not in the business of determining what's in the man's heart, like how sincere he is. I don't think that everybody's making this quote that Bill Parcells made a long time ago, and that's if a man is already thinking about retirement, he's already retired. So, to equate that, if I make my last will and testament out, and I'm thinking about death, am I already dead? If I'm thinking about selling my house, is it already sold? These types of absolute statements that people make to sound grand and gesture or so wise, they're not wise at all. Just because you're thinking about retirement, when did Stephon Tuitt start thinking about retirement? Was he already retired? Or did he have some pros and cons to go through, weighing out the balance in some situations and some avenues to determine whether or not he wanted to continue on with his career? Because you may not want to do something, or you may want to do something, and you decide, okay, I'm wavering between whether or not I do something or not. And once you actually begin to take on the action, you'll find that, okay, I want to be here. I'm more enthusiastic than what I want to. Or, you could have an athlete. Let's just stick with athletes, for instance, that don't think about retirement. And they show up to training camp one year, and all of a sudden, they don't want to play. What's the linebacker that we just had? He signed with us, came back to the team, and all of a sudden he retired. Now, I don't know who can say whether or not he was thinking about retirement the whole time. But he showed up, started playing, and said to himself, no, I'm done. I'm done. So, all that, this narrative, all these people that want to sit back and pretend like life don't happen to them, they fascinate me. So this is what I noticed. First of all, we know that Aaron Rodgers only has two options, really, to be honest with you. And that's play quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers or retire. Now, there is no telling. I think it was Chat Sports, Jack Sperry on Chat Sports. He went through um, and some quotes and comments that Aaron Rodgers made back in January um, when the Palisades were on fire. And he said that he has friends, a lot of friends. I mean, the Palisades is full of rich people, celebrities that lived in that area. And a lot of them lost everything. I mean, artifacts and memorabilia and stuff you just can't replace to that fire, which was a devastating fire. And they're still in the beginning stages of rebuilding that area and reclaiming their lives. A lot of people got displaced and rich people got displaced. And so whether or not his friends are rich or not is not the question. Whether it's that he has people that he's concerned about. If this is the factor that the personal issues that he's going through, people that he really cares about, while he's doing this, at what level he's involved in helping his loved ones, he can't really decide what he could commit to that game until he irons those things out. Now, you got to understand, how far along is he in that process? We don't know. Only he knows. People say, well, he's being super secretive and he wants all this attention. At some point in time, you can't just let people talk about you without saying something. So I'm not saying that I'm defending Aaron Rodgers. What I'm saying is I don't know him. Now, these sports reporters and analysts, if they know him personally, then maybe they can make such statements. That's something that they can do. They can stand on things that we can't stand on. For the average fan that doesn't know him, not in that realm, no experience, no contact, no communication with the man ever, to be making all these bold claims about somebody you don't even know and make that your determining factor of what type of person he is, what type of quarterback he is, and how he's going to best suit your teams. None of those things matter. All that matters is, can the man ball, and is he better than Mason Rudolph, Russell Wilson, and Justin Fields? And my answer is a mediocre Aaron Rodgers, average Aaron Rodgers, because he played average ball last year. Now, the statistics say he was 26, 28, 27, 22nd in QBR and passer efficiency and passer ratings. And my thing is, how many points did the New York Jets give up to the Pittsburgh Steelers? What was their QBR? And what was Russell Wilson's QBR? What was Russell Wilson's passer rating? What was Justin Fields' QBR? What was his passer rating? What was his passion efficiency? What was his success rate on drives? How many drives did Justin Fields had that went 3 and out? How many drives did Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers not manage to get to the 50-yard line or cross the opponent's 50-yard line in the game? What was the percentage of success rate? Okay, so the offense did improve a little, but there were still periods of times where they couldn't sustain drives. There was periods of time they couldn't even convert like 3rd and 2s. So, you don't think that Aaron Rodgers can at least play as well as they played last year behind a better team? Oh, you say that Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams are better than George Pickens and Derek Metcalf, DK Metcalf? That's debatable. That is debatable. I don't care who you are. That's debatable. First of all, Devontae Adams is 32 years old. And you don't think that Derek Metcalf is better than him? DK Metcalf is better than him. And you don't think that George Pickens is as good as or better than Garrett Wilson? What are we saying? What are we saying? You don't think that they can get better production out of their backfield, depending on who they draft and who they already have, than they got out of Breece Hall last year. Who is the Jets' tight end? I don't even know his name. I know he's not in the same part as Pat Freiermuth. So with better offensive line play, an offensive line that played with Zach Frazier, was it McCormick, and Dan Moore wasn't a rookie, but Rodgers Jones was in his second year. So basically 3 young players, 2 rookies, and next year it'll be a second-year player that didn't play at all last year, and 2 second-year players, and then Isaac Seumalo, and so you have four starters on the offensive line. You got Rodgers Jones at left tackle, Zach Frazier at center, McCormick at right guard, and you have Troy Fontanonu at right tackle. So that's the 4 players, 3 players in their second year, 1 player in his third year, 1 player that is in his second year. However, he only played half a game last year. So that there's a marginable expectation that offensive line will improve, not only with experience, but with technique and with continuity. They will improve. And then people always bring up, okay, you got George Pickens, DK Metcalf, and Pat Freiermuth. They're not even taking into account that you have Calvin Austin, who was a big play deep threat last year. Also taking into account that they have the big tight end, 6'8" tight end. They have him as well, and if you properly use him, he's a threat just by standing there. Just by standing there. And that isn't even taking into account if they're drafting a wide receiver or not. So I just think that Aaron Rodgers still has the arm talent. He maybe not has the mobility that he had before, but he still has the arm talent. He still can outthink Mason Rudolph or Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. And so I think that he'll keep the chains moving even better than those guys will. Now, I think the real issue is should the Steelers be waiting on him? First of all, I don't think that whether or not Aaron Rodgers is on the Steelers team affects who they're going to draft. It doesn't affect who they're going to draft. It doesn't affect whether or not they should draft a quarterback or not. And so this is what I want to go into now when we're talking about the draft and the prospects that have been talked about who they should draft. First of all, with the first pick. And, I think I did one mock draft and I never posted it. So my next post tomorrow, I'll do a mock draft. I really don't like doing mock drafts, just like I don't like fantasy football. I just like football. That's just my preference. I'm not knocking it. So if somebody's in the comment section saying, you're stupid, you're an idiot because you don't like fantasy football. It's just my preference. I don't like fantasy football. I just like football. The way that it has been established over the last 100 years, that's what I like. Anything other than that, I don't like. I don't like fantasy football. And I don't see the point in doing mock drafts most of the time because I don't know what they're going to do. I like to speculate about who I want, who I think they should get. And I guess mock drafts is a way to do that. I guess it's kind of fun. So let's see if I can get into it because up until this point, I've done one mock draft in my life and I'm 50 years old. So let's just see, what it'll come out. But it's like, for instance, okay, so we're talking about round 1 picks. And I think the Steelers have one, two, three needs, three top tier needs. The first need that I think that they need is they need a defensive tackle or defensive end, however you want it. I think they need a defensive tackle because Keanu Benton needs to slide out to the end. He's better suited to play end. But, you know, you can't tell Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin anything. They like to take people out of their natural positions and switch them around. So, whatever. So, a defensive end or a defensive tackle. Now, if the Steelers stay at 21, the three top ones are the tackle from Michigan, the defensive tackle from Michigan. And then you have Derek Harmon. And then the I'm bad with names, and I've been listening to this stuff all week long, and I can't come up with these names. But Derek Harmon, and then a big number 79 from Michigan, and then there's a third tackle, top defensive tackles. Then there's also a defensive end. Is he a defensive end or defensive tackle? Derek Alexander, I believe he's a defensive end. He's also the fourth one. So if any one of those four are available, then that's who I think they should take, a defensive tackle, first overall. Now, if it's a possibility that all four of them are available at that top 21 pick, I would be an advocate of trading down. Now, I'm not an advocate of trading out of the first round, but I am an advocate of trading down, 28, 29, and around that area. And depending on who is there, that's where I think you should make that pick. And depending on who you can get is a big deal for me. So me personally, I would go defensive tackle, first round, quarterback, second round, if you can get a second round pick, if you can recover a second round pick, quarterback, second round, and running back, third round. And then from there on, who cares? I don't really think they should draft a wide receiver. I think they should bring Deontay Johnson back because he's no longer in a position where he's going to expect to be the number one or number two receiver. He's got to play for the vet minimum or close to it. He's still young. I don't even think he's 27 years old yet. He's still young. And because of the experiences that he's had over the last year, he's probably hungry. And the Steelers know how to handle him. Maybe he's been humbled a little bit. So just think about a wide receiver room of George Pickens, DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, Ben Skoranek, and DJ Johnson. Ooh, that's nice. I would rather have him than any rookie because once you get out of the first three rounds, the wide receivers are unimpressive. And none of those receivers are going to be as good as Deontay Johnson. None of them. So, and then I would pick up a late round cornerback and I would draft another offensive lineman. So that's my thought process. So that's probably I'm going to look for in my mock draft. As a matter of fact, when I get off this recording, I'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and do a mock draft. And then I think it was Matt Williamson was the first person that I heard that mentioned bringing Deontay Johnson back. And he made some good points about Deontay Johnson. Some of those locker room issues that he had during his last year here, those were outliers. So it wasn't like he was consistently a problem. Getting into a fight with Minkah Fitzpatrick. You know how many fights players get into that we never even hear about on the same team. So I don't really think that's a big deal. And so, I'm an advocate of bringing him back, and I think that he would be better than any draft pick that you can get. And, you could take that draft pick and utilize it on someone else. A fourth round cornerback, a fourth round safety, maybe somebody that slept. But so the quarterbacks that I like in this draft, second or third round. If I'm going second round quarterback, and people can disagree with me, I'm going Jalen Milroe. One of the reasons why I'm going Jalen Milroe second round is because, like people have said, first of all, he's probably going to be gone by the third round. Second of all, he has the greatest upside. I mean, he could, with the right coaching, he can be Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson. Third of all, once you get past him, all those other quarterbacks will be there. Quinn Ewers, I'm not really a fan. I am a fan of Will Howard, but he's more of a project than Jalen Howard. Jalen Milroe is. And then who else is there? Who else may be there in the third round? Kyle McCord. Now, you got to think about this. Will Howard transferred to Ohio State to become the starting quarterback, and Kyle McCord transferred out of Ohio State to become the. Why would I want like somebody that quit and left when the spot was open? No, I don't want Kyle McCord. And he's like, I see him as a fourth, fifth round quarterback. Tyler Shucker is going to be gone. Jackson Dart, I don't want Jackson Dart. Like I was saying in my last video, he's known to be a one-read quarterback. He played in a Derek Bell on the sports talk show or the sports podcast with I forgot the name of the podcast, but it's a sports talk podcast. But his name is Derek Miller. He was talking about how the offensive system that was run by Lane Kiffin in Ole Miss was a system that is geared towards boosting quarterback stats. So it was probably like a dink and dunk offense. And Jackson Dart is one of the lower rated deep ball throwers in the league, in college football, one of the lower rated deep ball throwers. That doesn't, spell good when your two top offensive receiving threats are home run hitters. Even though they're both jump ball, you can throw the ball up. However, he just doesn't throw a very good deep ball at this particular point in time. And he's a one-read quarterback. So once he gets past his first read, he has, issues going through his progressions. Locked On Sports. So Locked On Sports, Chris on Locked On Sports had an analyst, reporter, commentator named Derek Bell. And he was just talking about how Lane Kiffin schemed up the receivers so well in most of Ole Miss's games that Jackson Dart's first and second read was pretty much open all the time. That's not going to happen in the NFL. He's going to have to go through his progressions. I'm kind of like Kenny Pickett. Can't go through his progressions. Left way too many receivers open. We talked about Matt Canada's route scheme and his offensive play calling so bad. But what we failed to talk about when it came to Kenny Pickett is that he wouldn't throw the ball to open receivers. He would miss them or just misread them more. And then he would throw behind receivers and in front of receivers and over receivers' heads. Oh my goodness. Probably because he couldn't grip the football. But, that's what happened. And so those are some of my thoughts today. I'll get back to you more. That next time we talk, I'll talk more about the draft and who my favorite running backs is in that third round that I would be looking for, like Quinshon Judson from Ohio State. Um, that's who I like. I like DJ Giddens. I like him. Big running backs, but with speed. And also, we could talk about Jalen Ramsey. Should the Steelers go after Jalen Ramsey? Will they have a shot at him? What would you have to get him? And so we'll talk about that tomorrow. And I also have my mock draft for you tomorrow. Peace. Hit like and subscribe, comment, and tune in next time. And we'll get some more reactions, just fan commentation. Peace.